Shalom, people. This is Brother Laos coming at you with another video. And I want to talk about a dream that I had the other day. You know, according to the scripture, in the last days, when the Father would pour out the Spirit upon His people, Israel, and those Gentiles which would be grafted in. The Bible said that the young men would have, and young women would have the visions, and the old men and old women would have the dreams. And we know that the Most High speaks through dreams and visions. I don't want to equate that one is more important than the other. Some people equate the fact that the dreams of the old people is because they are always sleeping or resting or whatever. I don't know if that's the case. And I guess they equate the visions being when you're awake and you're active. You know, that's usually when the visions come to people when they're moving around and the Most High, like when Peter was on the rooftop and he had the vision. Either one is the Most High, I believe, speaking. I don't, I'm over 50, of course, so I would, I guess, consider to be an old man. I don't feel old in my spirit, but however, the Most High would, use me, in any capacity. I would be appreciative of it because I believe that everybody has needs to take a role in this awakening of Yah's people, as nation, and we need to lose the titles, whether it's an old man, a young man, Christian, Muslim, whatever, pastor, prophet. I think that all those that are believers in Yeshua and love the Father and are led by His Spirit, or Ruah, as is spoken in Bantu, whether they're in America, the Caribbeans, or on the mother continent of Africa, I believe that we need to play our part. And so I'm hoping that I'm going to read to you, I wrote it down, my dream, and I pray that whoever looks at this video, that this will play a part in the awakening of Yah's people. So, briefly, it was during a time of prayer when this happened, and typically when I have my most effective prayer time for me is early in the morning, usually sometime after 1 a.m. I'll get up and I'll go down into prayer, while everybody's sleeping, there's no movement in the house. So this time of prayer that I was praying, it was about 3 a.m. And typically I'll get down and I'll get down in prayer and praise. But for this time of prayer, I made up in my mind. I said, I'm going to just lay here prostrate, and I want the Most High Yah to just download into me, because at that time I was feeling, and this is probably about a week ago, I was really feeling depressed. I was feeling frustrated as, I looked out at the situation going on in the 4 points of the earth with our people, just seeing stuff that was going on in Africa, stuff going on in America, just how, we are so distracted. But anyway, as I started off in, prayer and praise, and then I just basically laid prostrate on the ground, and I remained there in silence, except for a few times that I would say thank you, Yah. And I guess probably maybe an hour and a half into that prayer, I just started getting a dream vision of a black woman. She was dark brown with short nappy hair, and she was dressed in African clothes. She was sitting in a chair, and she was surrounded by these, what they looked like to be Caucasian men, and they were torching her. I think one of them was a Middle Eastern guy, but some of them are descendants of the Ottoman Turks, which are Caucasian people. They mixed in. That's what the word Arab. So it was a white Arab person, typical white Arab person. That was one among the ones that was torturing this black woman that was sitting in a chair. She and when I say African, I'm saying the African attire. I just kind of equated that to being that she was from Africa. Not that I believe that us and Africans are different, but I believe she was an African attire from my perspective, so that I'll understand that she was from the continent of Africa. But anyway, they was torturing her, and as I looked in her face, I could see a lot of fear, and I could see a lot of dejection, as if she felt, just helpless, defeated. She was looking defeated. And, it was just a really sad scene. And when I got up, I couldn't really think about what it meant to me, except maybe after later on that morning, as I thought about the dream, it came to me what it meant. At least this is what I believe it meant. I believe that this woman that I seen is the continent of Africa. That's why she was in African attire. It's the African people, all the nations where we are at, in the whole continent, and that the European or the Caucasian men that were around her, are not just the European nations or the beast nations, but also the Arab nations who are robbing her of her natural resources. And this is causing turmoil and defeatism. And you can see that in so many of the young African youth fleeing the continent. They're fleeing, they're dejected, they're defeated. You can see some of the nations where they have tried to stand up against the older regimes that have had presidents that have just voted themselves in for more terms, and so they are defeated on their own continent, and they feel the only way they can achieve anything in their life is to leave this country. So subsequently, the continent is losing its most precious natural resources, which is its people, which is causing it to mourn. If you ever read the Bible, you'll see constantly where it said that the earth, in certain places, it would be dejected. And how can an inanimate object or thing or whatever be? It said that the land would vomit up the inhabitants. Well, the continent itself, which is, we all come from the dirt, right? We come from the dirt with Yah's spirit in us. So we have that connection to the land. So if we say Africa is mourning, we're not only saying that the people, but also the land is mourning. And you can see that with all those fires that's going across Africa. So it is in despair. The mother is in despair. And you can see it also with the religions, Christianity, what it's doing over there in Africa with all these crazy preachers over there stealing money and enslaving people and voodoo. Then you see the voodoo control that voodoo has over there, which there was one gentleman I was watching. He said that actually you'll find some of these Christian pastors or have connections to the voodoo power. You know, that's how some of them actually do some of their miracles. But you also have Islam, which is through the Arab nations. You got Lebanese people and stuff coming over there, people from Turkey, people from all over the place that's coming and raping and robbing the land, the people. You see the tribal warfare. You see what Christianity through the Roman Catholic Church is doing to the country, where people pouring all their money into the whore church. You see what Islam is doing with Boko Haram, and the tribal conflicts. All this is causing the depopulation. You see the spreading of disease. You see them trying to change the cultural norms. You know, these vaccine campaigns they're going over there doing, they're sterilizing women and infecting people with diseases, enticing, like I said, the youth to flee for America and Europe, you know, even to some that are fleeing to South America to try to make it to America. There's thousands and thousands of people dying every year, and it's this despair. And I think that Yah is showing this to me, and it's not just to me, but many others, to show that we must pray intensely for Africa to be liberated in order to pave the way for our exodus and our, because think about this: if we're believing that the Most High Yah is going to have a place for us to flee to safety, Africa is the most viable and most sensible place, I believe, that Yah would. And it has to be prophecy, because if you read in the book of Isaiah, it talks about how we'll come up through Egypt, through the seven dried up river streams that, into, or the tongue. He said he will smite the tongue of the Egyptian river, and we will come up through there. So that's Africa. So before we come, we need to pray that Africa is liberated. We must pray, because still most of the 12 tribes are there on the continent. They're still there, along with the real Egyptian people who according to Yah, they must be liberated also. If you read that in Isaiah, because not just prophecy dealing with us has to come to pass, but prophecies according to all peoples must come to pass. He said that in that book of Isaiah, he said that the Egyptians must be liberated so that they can come back into their land. The real Egyptians can come back into their land, and that they will set up their altars, and that they're going to pray to the Most High Yah. And if you know anything about the two oldest churches, well, they wasn't, we say assemblies, they use the word church, but it was assemblies, was the Ethiopian Coptic Church and the Egyptian Coptic Church. These are very important things that must transpire also. So I'm believing that this is just speaking to us that we got to be in prayer for Africa. I don't think it's a coincidence that this is a year of return, and that the AU secretary for the diaspora, before they made her resign, she was saying Mother Africa is calling you back. I'm thinking that even if you're not able to make a trip to Africa, which we are trying to make a trip to Africa, that you can pray for her with all the things that's coming up, in like Russia coming in now, trying to throw their hat in the ring for Africa's natural resources. And we got to start praying against some of their leaders because their leaders are signing them to treaties and agreements that the people are not agreeing to, but they don't have no power. We got to pray that Yah will not only make those agreements null and void, but also all the old ones that the African chiefs and kings signed back that helped colonialism to come in, because all you'll see is where the European powers will come in and said, but we signed this treaty back in the 1800s that, with this chief that said we could get all these millions of acres. We got to pray that the Most High Yah will break those, because when Babylon's time is over and Yah decides to bring those that want to leave, because I don't believe that everybody, black person in America, wants to leave America. I don't think that every black person in the country has that yearning to get away from this, like even the ones that say they're Christian. We have become so Americanized and worldly. It's gonna be like the time that Judah went into captivity in Babylon. That Daniel was I'm just saying from my understanding, it seemed like he was the only one praying after the 70 years was up for them to be able to go back to Israel, because it doesn't seem like the other people that was in the captivity were even thinking about that. But Daniel was praying and fasting. Most High Yah would release the people. And then even, when you read about Nehemiah and Ezra, it doesn't seem like a lot of people was going back to back to Israel, and that's why you probably had so many Yahudim that were still in Babylon. When you read the writings of James, I think it's James, and read the writings of Peter, where he write to the Brews that are in Babylon. And also, if you remember my book review I did of the 13th Tribe with Arthur Kessler, he talked about how the rabbis and people that came to teach the Khazarian Empire about Judaism, they came out of Babylon. Those are our descendants. Those are the ones that came up in there now. To be clear, some of the Yahudim by blood, they were not Yahoo. They were Edomite converts. But because we know, you had to go back into history and find out that before Yeshua was born, in between the time Ezra, Nehemiah, the intertestamental period between the last books that were wrote in what they call the Old Testament and the New, you had them being conquered by the Greeks and the Romans. That we know that when Greece occupied Israel, it made the Edomites, who were Jacob's brother, who were black people, it made them converts. They made them convert to Judaism, so that's where you get one of those, that confusing part in the New Testament where when Yeshua talked about was talking to some of the Pharisees, they said, we never been in slavery. We are of Abraham's seed, and we never been under slavery. That always confused me till I understood that some of the people that was the Pharisees and all them, they were Edomites. They were converts, and they were of the seed of Abraham, but they was not of the promise. The promise was to Jacob's. So it was, they looked just, they were Jacob's the twin brothers' descendants. So that meant that they were the brother. You know, the nephews and whatever you want to call them. They were, but they just like there was friction between Esau and Jacob when these Edomite converts to Judaism came, and some of them were put in positions of power. They still had the inner conflict or whatever, but not getting off onto that subject. Just getting back to, like I said, about what's going on in Africa, and not just Africa, but every other place, but especially Africa. We got to pray for their liberation. We got to. Like I said, when it's time to flee, I believe that's a place with Most High Yah. Where, when we land at, I don't know. But I would say in the days and times that we're living, especially like you see the fires that's happening in California where people's houses are burning up. Now, a lot of that's preventable because they're building them in obviously places where where if the houses wasn't there, there was going to be forest fires. But I'm saying I'm believing that, that's just a sign to me, especially when you had the fires getting close to LA, that Yah is getting ready to he's turning the heat up, and there's going to be some more incredible things that's going to start happening that's, going to touch, everyone. He said the trouble is going to come upon the whole earth, and so that means that he said that 1,000 on your left, 10,000 on your right, or something like that. We're not gonna get out of this thing unscathed in the sense of I'm not saying that some of us probably might lose our life, but I have no doubt that we're gonna lose some, maybe those that Yah has marked for preservation, meaning that what you have here in Babylon or wherever other places that he has scattered and dispersed us, that you might lose it, but you'll get out with your life. You'll get out with your life, but also you remember the Bible says that where the nation that he gonna judge, you will leave with great substance. So you might not leave. I don't think it's gonna mean you're gonna leave with a car or anything, but I do believe that Yah is gonna, if something's gonna happen. I don't know, and this is what makes it so good that we don't know. We just know that Yah's gonna take care of it this time. I don't believe that he gonna bring anybody out that doesn't want to come out. Anybody that wants to stay back here or wherever it's at, where it's part of the Babylonian Empire, type thing, they're gonna get their reward here on earth. Get their reward right now, but it's gonna be burnt up. I believe what he has for us, where we're going, is gonna be so great. I pray that I can make it there, but it might not be my time to, who knows. I just know this, that we gotta pray for Africa. We gotta pray for her liberation. She is really hurting. And I know we're hurting here, but overall for a continent like that, it's gotta hurt more for them because they got all the natural resources and stuff, but they can't benefit from it. It's just like Revelation said. He said, I know that you're rich, but you're poor. These people are sitting on the greatest natural mineral resource continent in the world, but they are extremely poor. That's prophecy right there. They can't. But who has that? The Europeans, the Arabs, the Sudan, the Ishmaelites, the original descendants of Ishmael, there in the Sudan and the northern parts of Africa. But they can't be. But the Yahudim and others can't benefit from it. We gotta pray for that. We gotta pray for the continent. We gotta pray that Yah gives back the lands that he originally intended for everybody to have to get them back. He intended for the sons of Ham to have the northern parts of Africa. He intended for Mizraim to have the land that they have that they don't have. He intended for Japhet to have the European nations. That's what he intended. That's why I believe when y'all start calling all those that's in Europe, all those that are in America and South America and Central America that don't want to be in Babylon, that that he gonna make a way for us to make it back. I would say this: we gotta have a mindset when we come out that we don't bring our Babylonian way of thinking, our Western way of thinking to Africa, because they don't need that. But I do believe that all y'all people that love Yeshua, y'all's gonna shake up the earth. So I believe that when we come together in the wilderness, which I don't necessarily believe that Africa, we're gonna be sleeping out in the bush or anywhere like that. I don't think we are. I just think that when you say wilderness, people think about Africa being a wilderness, but they have cities and everything. So I don't know how he's gonna do it. I would just be speculating, but we gotta pray for Africa to be liberated. It is where the Garden of Eden was. That's the very ground that Yah, when he formed Adam, he formed him out of that clay. He formed him out of that ground and breathed his spirit. So it's got to be some power in that. And you even read in Genesis where he talked about how the gold and Havilah and Ophir and all those places. And Euphaz is the best gold in the world. So Africa is a very special place to the Most High Yah. You find a lot of Bible prophecy, a lot of when you read about the Bible, a lot of things that happen there. Now I don't believe that Southern Africa is actually where Jerusalem is. I think we gotta be very careful that they're doing a lot of misinformation, with some things that's being put out there, and we gotta be very we gotta stop saying that this is, and on some things that this is, like canon, even like the dream that I just gave you. That's just my way I believe it is, but somebody else might believe that the dream means something else. But that's all I have right now for you. I also want to throw this in. They just had this, and I wrote this down too, because it kind of disgusted me, was the so-called killing of this guy named al-Baghdadi. That, this is, in October last month, when all this impeachment stuff came up, that how conveniently this guy al-Baghdadi was killed. It's October surprise that they normally do to kind of throw people off, with the impeachment hearings and stuff. It's just so predictable. I mean, they really getting sloppy. I mean, this move is similar to what Obama did with Bin Laden supposedly being killed in 2011. Yeshua says that we gotta be careful. We can't be ignorant of the devil's devices. I mean, those that are in Yeshua, the Bible said that we are not ignorant of his devices. So this is just another tool that they use, putting out frequencies, putting out false stories, Um, I believe even affecting our dreams, trying to with this technology. We just got through. Me and my family came from seeing this movie, the Terminator Dark Fate, and it. I'm not gonna tell you. If you want to go see it, I'm not gonna give a spoiler alert. Whether it's good or bad. I'll just say that it has some of the predictable messages in there. So I mean, this like they normally do this, showing you probably some of the technologies that they actually probably got, you know, out there right now, and giving you a vision of it to kind of show you how powerful or whatever they are. Because I don't believe that uh, they try to say that Hollywood gives the Department of Defense's ideas. I think it's the other way around. I think that the Department of Defense um, puts ideas out there. I mean, puts uh, out there to Hollywood to display the weapons that they have, to show you, display, just like Yah said he like to display his powers. Well, they don't want you to actually see, but I think they'll put this out so they'll show you, display their powers that they actually got, that they're gonna actually use one day when the Battle of Armageddon is fought. With some of these futuristic weapons that I think they have for a long time, that they're trying to provoke a war and trying to provoke the Most High, send back Yeshua so that they can take him out this time. That the devil's got them really deceived that, when he comes back, that they're gonna destroy him and they destroy the army. I really believe that they can. Um, I just wonder, where do they think the devil gets his power from? Where does technology or whatever, where did he get it? He didn't originate it, but that's a video for another day. I know I've been rambling on, but I think um, if anything I want you to get out of this video again is just pray for Africa, pray for her liberation, because for us that want to get out of here when it's time to flee Babylon, that Yah will carve out a cleft in the rock for us to be able to go there when it's time. All right, pray my strength in the Lord.